podcast too in front of all the newbies.
I know.
Yeah.
Oh, was this at the...
That's fantastic.
In the newbie
He
meeting?
loves it.
Yeah, I get in there and I'm getting like blown up. People are like, Rich Grady just called out your podcast.
Oh, really?
And then I get in there and it's just like, Assad comes up to me and he's like, you owe him like, royalties or something for him. And Rich is like, I plugged you, man. I'm like, and then he's like, when am I going to be on the podcast again? It's been a long time. Check Complete, a referee podcast, is an educational resource for referees by referees, designed to connect and develop soccer officials of all ages and skill levels to better serve the game both on and off the field. The Check Complete podcast is back and rolling with season 2, episode numero 4, number 4. That's number 4. We're back with season 2, episode 4. Excited to get into a few different things. I'm here with a friend of the podcast. Is that what you are?
I think so.
You are? I think so.
For some people.
We've seen you before. This is Zach Richter. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me back.
Yes, we're excited to have you back. We're gonna talk to Zach. We're gonna kind of introduce a new segment here shortly, and then we're gonna have a conversation with NCAA rules editor Rich Grady. So this is an action-packed episode.
Yes,
it'll be wonderful. So Zach, should we just ask the first? How are you?
I'm well.
Good.
I'm well. I'm getting ready for the upcoming season.
Yeah.
Kind of mentioned NCAA is right around the corner. For the referees who are in the college sector, this is a very busy time for refereeing because you have college, USSF, and high school, and whatever youth leagues that you may be a part of, and that could pose a lot of late nights and long weekends, and you gotta prepare for that.
Right. I know. I was gonna go for a run today, but it rained last Friday, so I didn't want to risk it. But anyway, so yeah, it's we are in crunch time.
Yes.
I mean, it's almost here. We're gearing up, and we were talking about kind of comparing assignments and when things start to hit. We're looking at all the fitness test stuff that's around the corner, at least for our chapter, and preseason meetings and all that kind of stuff. So it's a busy time. I know those of you folks that are married, you see your spouse in December.
Yes.
Right? Unless you end up doing this hobby or whatever you want to call it, avocation together.
Yes, in which case you can't get rid of them.
And then I can't get away from you. Exactly. That's right. Very good. So you have been in an assigning role. You've been in an assigning role for some time now.
Yes.
How long have you been assigning?
Just post-COVID, really.
Okay.
I had a ton of time during that and woke up one day and thought it would be an awesome idea to become an assigner and realized that was a huge mistake.
Right.
No, in all seriousness, it is a lot of fun. There's some promising aspects to it.
Sure.
And as a referee, you kind of learn a whole different side of the game, Yeah. And you grow a little bit more respect for what these people go through. But it's definitely a task, but it has its moments of awesomeness.
Yeah, no doubt. We'll dive into that a little bit more closely. But so you've been doing a lot of assigning back up in the Chicago area.
Yes.
Right. You live here in Kansas City now, but
correct.
You still do some assigning up there at multiple levels, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So you've got all sorts of things that you're assigning with different platforms. It seems like everybody's got a different platform now. Which is a separate conversation. Maybe that's another segment of what's your favorite platform and why.
That could be its all old segment right there.
We could do a whole podcast on assigning platforms. But different platforms, different levels of assigning. So what levels have you assigned referees at?
Yeah, so I obviously got started in Chicago. You hit that right on the head. I work basically from like U12 to U19 in terms of the youth level of soccer. I assign high school from freshman through varsity, and then I also assign semi-professional, which I guess if you can call it that, within the UPSL.
Right.
So I have the Midwest Division from there,
Gotcha.
and we're actually this weekend we have a Chicago team who's actually hosting a round of 8.
Yeah.
So it's been a long spring season for me in terms of assigning that because they don't lose.
Right. Right. Yes, we have a Kansas team that's also made it that far, so it'll be a long trip to Hayes and back this weekend, so I somehow agreed to do that. I'm not sure why. But anyway, so various levels with referees kind of, along their various levels along their own path, right?
Correct, very much so.
Which is kind of cool. I'm sure you can probably see some referees develop and advance, which I'm sure is I don't want to put words in your mouth, but there's probably a level of, it's rewarding to be able to provide them opportunities and see them. So just from a personal side, on the assigning side of things, what for you is, well, I'll let you decide. Do you want to go the negative route first? Or do you want to go...
There's no negatives. It's only learning opportunities.
Okay. So the growth edges,
yes.
the learning opportunities, or the successes, the trophies, the fun stuff.
Okay.
I'll let you decide which route you want to go first, because I'd love to hear both.
Yeah. So just in terms of just assigning, right?
Yeah.
And with the referee and the interaction, I mean, there's a lot of positives and negatives to both. And obviously, when you first start off assigning, it's kind of like you have this picture in your head, and you think it's going to work out perfectly, and that nothing's going to go wrong. And within a couple hours, couple minutes, even, that picture just dissipates.
Yeah.
And you have to pivot, and you have to problem solve. And so as an assigner, it's kind of like one of those things, like as a referee, when the game is done, once you submit your report, you're pretty much done.
Right.
As an assigner, there are other aspects that you have to be involved in terms of, like, if there was a red card during the game, you have to communicate with the leagues, you have to communicate with the referees, you have to follow up on stuff of that nature. So it's, you see it from the very birth of the game actually being created in terms of the league coming out and saying, hey, these two teams are going to play on this state at this location, to then searching for the correct referees for that game, and then following up and putting a bow on it at the end and making sure everything's concluded nicely. I think as a referee, a lot of people think, assigners just plug names into a spot and call it. And to be honest with you, some assigners do.
Sure.
But I think the rewarding aspect of this is when you track a certain group of referees and you see their growth from game to game to game to game by the end of the season. And by the end of it, you're like, I don't know that you would ever be ready for this game, but your growth this entire season and the remarks that I've gotten from coaches and other referees that are more senior, you might actually be ready for this, so I'm going to throw you a bone. And then nothing is more rewarding than getting a call after the game and being like, thank you so much for the opportunity, it went really well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's give and take. There are days where you want to absolutely strangle a referee, and there are some days you just want to go around and pray that you have the best referees in the entire country.
Yeah.
So it's give and take.
Yeah, absolutely. And that makes sense. So it sounds like this is, I think we know this, those of us that have been in this avocation for a while, how crucial the assigner role truly is.
Yes.
Right? Like, it is a vital position, and I think you and I have had some discussions about this, but we've seen it where it becomes a, and I think this happens at the very grassroots level sometimes. Leagues or groups will hire people to just be kind of slot fillers more than assigners.
Yes, absolutely.
And so, not to put you on the spot, but what differentiates someone from being someone who's just filling slots to someone who's actually doing the art/science of assigning?
The art and science only goes as far as the referee's availability.
Yeah, well, that's true. That is true.
But I mean, U.S. soccer's biggest pool of referees are grassroots level referees, and it's usually people below the age of 18.
Right.
Because once you get to 18 and above, you go to college. After college, you usually get a big boy or big girl job, and then you don't need that supplemental income as refereeing, nor do you want to deal with the headache that comes with it.
Right.
And more times than not, then you have a family, and then your kids grow up and they start playing, and you don't end up seeing that referee again until they're like in their mid-30s, right? And their kid is more self-dependent. But I feel like that group of 12 to 18-year-olds shrinks, and we have such a high turnover rate because the referee is not getting the type of individualized attention that they need in order to be successful.
Sure.
And a lot of that starts, a lot of people want to blame the state. And because they're like, you're not giving enough instruction, you're not doing this. Well, yes, you can give the best instruction in the whole world. But if you would then have an assigner that comes out and cherry picks this 13-year-old referee and puts them on a U19 game, and they go out there and have an absolute catastrophe, You've just destroyed that referee's confidence and that ability to actually love the sport as a referee.
Yeah.
So the art, if you will, of assigning that referee is knowing what game you can put that referee on while challenging them, but also giving them the ability to grow and develop confidence.
Yeah, that's huge.
And so it's, I mean, when I first took it over, I didn't necessarily understand that until I saw some fires break out, you know?
Right.
And it was a quick learning curve for me for sure.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I'm perfect by any means, but I feel like I've gotten a pretty good niche of referees that I feel like I know. And if I don't know them, I have people like you and other people within the SRC I can go to and be like, hey, tell me more about this person.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I mean, kind of diving into the assigning platforms, there are platforms out there which I currently use where we actually rank the referee on a number scale.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so having that basis of just knowledge and saying, okay, I have a referee who rates as a 7 and I have a game that I rated as a 7, this is a great match. You know, and if they go out and they have success, I've done my job. If they go out and they have learning opportunities and, you know, things are great, okay, it's a good match still. But if they go out and have an absolute dumpster fire, you know, maybe I need to reevaluate the rating system.
Mm-hmm.
So
it sounds like this is an intensely relational work.
Yes.
Right? You have to know your people.
Yes,
you have to have
very much.
Established relationships to know where they're going to succeed and where they're going to be stretched.
Yes.
And, when they need to be stretched. I mean, all of that stuff. I think we can all, maybe those of you out there can recount stories in which maybe you personally or someone you knew was thrown into the deep end a little too soon,
Yes.
Either well-intentioned or just out of necessity or whatever the reason was. But it certainly is an art and a science. So I think we know some of the answers to this next question, but what are the things that you as an assigner like to see out of your referees? Some of those basic things. Again, we could probably name them, but what are some of those things?
I can quantify it down into one word, and it's just professionalism.
Yeah.
And so you think about professionalism, what does that mean as a referee? And what does that look like in the referee community? Well, it really starts with updating your availability on an assigning platform.
Sure.
Right? So I know a lot of previous assigners in this area would send out an Excel form and you would then update your availability and then you would confirm your games and everything else like that. As you move up the level, that isn't a reality.
Right.
It's all based within the system. And so one thing that I've basically made a cornerstone here in Kansas when I took over some of the refereeing assigning is that there will be no more Excel spreadsheets, there will be no more availability forms sent out, it will all be done through a system.
Right.
And referees are going to have to learn to adjust, and it's going to be an adjustment. And as an assigner, you have to recognize that and know that it's not that people are being defiant or they're not wanting to, but it's something new.
Right.
And I think creating that type of environment where you're starting to expose referees to higher levels of professionalism expectations only creates a more professional environment because you're demanding more out of them. And it's not like it's so far-fetched that they're not going to be successful.
Right.
It's all it is just accounting for your time of day, right? And knowing that, hey, you know, this coming weekend is our anniversary. So I'm going to block that day. I'm not going to leave it open and have myself assign you a game and be like, oh, Zach, I'm sorry I can't do the game because it's my anniversary. Well, you knew this.
You knew that.
You knew this a while ago. Why are you declining a game, such your availability, right? Or like, hey, I want to hang out with my friends this weekend. I don't have a game. So instead of waiting until you get that game and now having to turn it back, just go block the day.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
So it's just, it's learning those type of aspects and just communication. You know, another form of professionalism is just owning something as opposed to trying to negate it or make up something, right? As an assigner, and I can speak of this as a referee perspective. I have definitely called an assigner and not told the truth before to get out of the game.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
I'm sure every referee in the entire world has done that.
Right.
But it's even more frustrating as an assigner because referees are supposed to be reliable based off of their morals and their judgment, right? That's refereeing in a short little basket. Refereeing is basically honesty and just making judgment decisions to the best of your ability.
Right.
If you call and say, hey, I'm not feeling well, and I as a referee assigner see your name pop up on social media under another game, or I see a video clip of you on another game, I'm gonna be like, what the heck?
Are you kidding me? Yeah, right.
So
Right.
it's one of those things where it's like, you know, I want to back you as much as possible as a referee, and I want to support you, and I want to see you grow, and I want to see you be successful. But it's got to go both ways.
Right.
So,
yeah, that checks out. Absolutely. Good thoughts, good ideas, stuff that for most of us is probably pretty, I mean, a handful of that is fairly basic for a lot of folks, but it just is a matter of staying on top of that and being attentive to it.
And it's not easy, especially when you have a very hectic life.
Yeah, sure.
But it's just, you know, just set a time frame for yourself. Like every Tuesday, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to look at my next 3 weeks.
Right.
You know, and things are going to change, and that's okay. I don't think assigners expect you to be perfect. Like 2 or 3 mix-ups in a year, yeah, that makes sense. But a mix-up every week, that's a little unacceptable.
Right. Absolutely. Very good. Well, Zach, this is great. It's great to see you. It's great to hear your insight. Are there any other closing words that the Check Complete podcast must know about with regards to assigning before we have an exciting announcement about an upcoming segment that will be happening? So any words that you feel like you must share?
As a referee, I feel like we put a lot of emphasis on the type of games we get.
Yeah.
If you're working for a good assigner, know that you're being put on that game for a specific reason.
Right.
And just accept the assignment and know that there's a thought process behind it.
Yeah. It's good.
That's my last closing mark on assigning.
It's beautiful. It's good stuff. Awesome. Well, Zach, thanks for your time. We're going to take a short break and come back and announce an exciting new segment that we are going to pursue. I think it'll be good. So stick around.
The Check Complete podcast is brought to you in part by JF Consulting Tax Preparation and Bookkeeping. Taxes suck, we can help.
Back here with Zach Richter, excited to introduce to our lovely fan base, audience, whatever we're going to call these people that spend their time watching this. We are excited to announce a new segment. It's a Nerd Out segment. It's the Nerd Out segment. That's the best name we could come up with. I don't know. But we're nerding out about referee stuff, and specifically we're nerding out about gear or accessories or things like that. So we have our ideas about what we're going to talk about. Probably talk about whistle, probably talk about cards, probably talk about coins, some of those things. But I don't want to give out too many ideas because we need your help. Yes, you sitting there in your underwear eating Doritos, watching this, or whatever you're doing with your life. We need your help in figuring out what items we should nerd out about here. That's what we got to find out.
I can almost guarantee you that Nathan Cowling has a list.
Nathan does. Yes, that is true. He absolutely does. And a subscription for each of them. So anyway, so a nerd out we need from you. So this is, and as further incentive, if you submit an idea, something for us to nerd out about, okay, you will be entered into a drawing for some special items. Yeah, there's nothing in there.
Well, we're gonna draw.
Anyway, you'll be entered into a drawing for an item of your choosing. We have several that you can choose from, but we need your help. So submit your ideas, info@checkcompletepodcast.com. So you can email that to us. You can slide into our DMs at check_complete on Instagram and Twitter, Check Complete Podcast on Facebook. You could write it in the comments on this YouTube video, okay? Whatever you want to do, just get it to us. We will input you into the drawing, okay? And then we might be in touch with you a little bit more about your ideas about the item as well. But we want to nerd out. So we've got some different ideas about what this could look like. We're excited about this, and we hope you're excited about it too, but we want to know what we should nerd out about. So anything that comes to mind, I know I've already listed 3. Something like the whistle, cards you use, coin, shoes, whatever, what's your go-to brand?
Yeah.
All sorts of stuff. So we could talk about that. We want to hear from you. You'll be introduced into a drawing if you submit the item. We'll also do some plug on this on our social media. So look for that. If you're not already following us at check_complete on Twitter and Instagram, I'll plug that again. Check Complete Podcast on Facebook. Make sure you like and subscribe on YouTube as well if you haven't done that.
It's right next to the comments.
It is. Yeah. So it's very easy, not labor intensive at all. Okay, so that should be a fun segment, don't you think, Zach?
I think so.
Yeah. All right. We are excited to hear back from you. Next episode, episode 5, we will be debuting this with an item that we won't talk about yet, but we'll pick one of those, maybe from you, maybe in our own little brains, and we'll nerd out together. Stick around as we'll have a segment coming up after the break with NCAA Soccer Rules editor Rich Grady.
The Check Complete podcast is brought to you in part by JF Consulting Tax Preparation and Bookkeeping. Taxes suck, we can help. All right, we're back with the one, the only Rich Grady, friend of the podcast. Rich, how are things going for you?
Good, Gordie. Nice to see you again. Getting ready for another NCAA soccer season here, so let's get it done.
That's right. The summer goes by quickly. The fall is bearing down on us. We're getting ready for the fall 2023 season. So we wanted to touch base with you. We got a lot of folks that engage with the podcast that are working collegiate level matches. And so we wanted to kind of get everybody on the same page and provide another resource for them. So we just want to touch base with you and see, what do we have to look forward to this fall? So as far as, the rules side of things, the rules guru that you are, what do we have to look forward to as far as any changes, things to watch out for, things like that?
So this is technically not a rule change year for the NCAA. They're on a 2-year cycle. So we're not changing anything officially. The new wording that IFAB has just put in for offside is something that we adopted last year when their memo first came out. So a number of people have said, hey, wait a minute, how are we dealing with the offside change? Guess what? We already did it. It worked fine. It was very non-controversial last year. So we did not really have a lot of issues with that. As far as the rule change, there is an experimental rule, and that's a process that the NCAA allows the rules committee to have an experimental rule in many sports. And for soccer this year, it came originally from the Big Ten. And there's going to be an experimental expansion of video review.
Okay.
So that will apply in the following conferences. We have 5 conferences that are going to use it for all of their conference games, both men and women, and their postseason tournament games. That's going to be the American Athletic, the Atlantic Coast Conference, Big East, Big Ten, and Sun Belt. So all of those conferences are going to use it in regular season matches within conference and in the conference tournament. And then we have 4 other conferences that are going to use it just for the postseason conference tournament. That would be the Big 12, the SEC, the Southland, and the Western Athletic Conference. So we're going to have 9 different conferences, which I think is a good number to help us evaluate, does the rule work? And we're going to collect some data. And then the committee will evaluate things at the end of the year.
So what is that? Yeah, the data you're looking for, how do we measure success with this change?
Well, so what the change probably makes more sense to go into what the change is first,
Yes.
and then we'll talk about it. So what we are allowed to do under the experimental rule is that referees can now review a penalty kick if it was called on the field. They can review a straight red card if it was given on the field. So in both of those situations, the only way the play is reviewable is if the referee affirmatively makes a call that results in a PK or a straight red card. If there is, you can't review a non-PK decision. You can't review a yellow card and upgrade it to a red card for the severity of the foul. So the committee was adamant that they did not want excessive number of reviews and delays. So the idea is that we're going to look at those game-changing moments and be able to consult replay on those plays. And then one that's going to be a little bit more open-ended is dog-so situations. That does not require a red card to be issued on the field. It does, however, require a foul to be called on the field. So if the referee on the field has called a foul, they can then review video to see should their decision stand or should it be changed. So if they went yellow on the field and the video shows that that's wrong and it should be dog-so, they can upgrade it to red. If they went red on the field and the video shows, again, that's clearly wrong, they could downgrade it to yellow. If they went just simple foul on the field, they can upgrade it to yellow or to red based on if video proved simply incorrect.
Gotcha.
So that's the framework for the rule. One of the things that we're going to emphasize in working with the conferences who are implementing it, and that's going to kick off for me this coming Saturday when I go speak to the ACC, is that the standard of video review is going to be the same for the experimental as it is for the existing rules, which is you can't change a call unless you have clear evidence that it was wrong. You can't look at it and say, well, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. You know, it's 51-49, so I'll lean with the 51%. The standard is that it has to be clearly wrong to overturn.
Sure.
So the NCAA does not want to get into re-officiating the games. They want to fix game critical mistakes. So there are obviously going to be more opportunities in games that have video review for the referee to use it. And what the committee has asked for is they want to collect data on the number of reviews that are conducted in each game. What was the review for? Did the call in the field get upheld or overturned? How long did the particular review take from the time the referee goes to the monitor until the decision is announced? And is there sorry, I'm blanking on the last one is the conference level, comparing the average duration of the game of reviews, the experimental reviews with the ones from prior years or from conferences that are not using video review at all. So the concern there is just basically to make sure that we're not adding 15 minutes to each half.
Sure.
Because of all the delays.
Makes sense. Personal opinion, do you feel like, I mean, I don't know how freely you can speak, but are you excited about this change? Do you feel like this is a step in the right direction?
I think it's going to be an interesting process. As listeners might remember, I do not have a vote on the rules committee. So I can voice my opinion, but ultimately I don't get to make the decision. The coaches who first proposed it were very conscious of not having an excessive number of reviews. And one of the things that I shared with them was it might be preferable to review penalty kick decisions either way. Review the ones that are called and review the ones that are not called. Because I think human nature being what it is, if the only way a decision is reviewable is if you give it on the field, I think a temporary short-term effect of that may be that we're going to have more penalty kicks called and more red cards given.
Sure.
And I tried to make them aware that I said, okay, if this is what you want, we can absolutely make it work, but you need to understand that there's probably going to be some dubious PKs and some dubious red cards that are going to have to stand because we don't meet the video evidence threshold for overturning.
Right.
And that could be simply a technical question of, hey, there's one camera angle and it's not enough to overturn it.
Right.
So as long as everybody is on the same page and understands what the rules of operation are, I think it's a valuable experiment, and we'll see where we land at the end of the year.
Very interesting. Yeah, I know my mind went that direction as far as if the only way for us to get to the monitor is if we do it this way, is there going to be more of that? And that makes sense. It'll be an interesting year. I guess you could call it some level of growing pains as you implement something new, and see how the different conferences and coaches and things react. Is there a problem as far as implementing it just in the postseason versus having it throughout the season as well? Is that, I've heard of different sports that have one of the wildest things I heard was, and it's a different sport, but there was a high school basketball organization, I don't remember where, that put a shot clock in just for postseason. And I thought, oh gosh, that seems wild. Is there a problem behind that, or am I overthinking that situation?
Well, the conferences that have chosen to do it that way have made the decision to do it that way themselves. And for example,
Sure.
The SEC does not use video replay during the regular season,
Right. Okay.
even the existing video replay rules. So
Hmm.
they were already operating on a difference between regular season and postseason.
Sure.
In the past few years, you go to the SEC tournament, you had video review available for all of the standard NCAA permissible plays. What they're doing now is expanding that. I think for some of the conferences, it's a good intermediate step because they can control the quality of the video equipment. Everything's in one place. It's a smaller amount of people that have to be trained. There are some arguments for doing it that way. And it really was up to the coaches and administrators of the various conferences how they wanted to proceed. And as you can see, we're only dealing with 9 conferences. There are a large number of conferences that simply said, we're not going there. Either they will continue to use the existing rules, or some of them probably don't have it at all.
Right. Okay, so that changed to video. Any other adjustments as far as the video replay process is concerned?
No changes there.
Okay, gotcha. So offside, not really a change, but continuing to adjust to that reinterpretation that IFAB introduced. I think there's probably folks that are still trying to sort that whole thing out. What else should we look forward to as far as any adjustments or changes or things for this year?
Well, I think with the offside, I think this is where we as officials maybe overcomplicate things for ourselves.
Sure.
Because the change actually aligned interpretation with expectations of coaches and players.
Yeah.
Well, the problems we had in the past were more explaining to a coach why a particular play wasn't offside when every logical fiber of their being told them it should be offside.
Sure.
And now we're moving in that direction. So, of all the things that came across my desk last year, this was not one of them. There were not a lot of issues with this at all. The other thing that we're going to take a look at during the season, we're going to have points of emphasis again, and we're basically continuing the ones that we had last year. We're going to be looking at controlling overly aggressive and rough play, and that's a student athlete safety concern. We don't want the games getting overly physical and people getting injured. We're going to look at making sure that we properly deal with stopping a promising attack. So fouls that are committed just to break up good attacking moves. We want to continue to emphasize getting it right when it comes to violent behavior 1 and 2 and fighting. And honestly, that was an area where we've got some work to do based on the protests from last year. We had 38 protests that were filed last year. 13 of them were mistaken identity protests. So card was given to the wrong individual. That's something that we should be able to clean up. We had 15 fighting ejections that were protested by coaches and conferences, and all 15 of those protests were granted because the referees they called something fighting that did not meet the rule book definition of fighting.
Oh, interesting.
So, it might have been properly called violent behavior 1, but if fighting calls for a 2-game ejection or a 2-game suspension, and the definition is striking someone in a malicious manner, basically NCAA soccer rules, fighting is throwing a punch. You can have a lot of pushing and shoving and other stuff that leads to an ejection, but by the rule book definition, it shouldn't be called fighting.
Sure.
So, we want to get that cleaned up so that there's less need for us to intervene after the fact with a protest. And then the last thing is continued focus and improvement on behavior within the coaching and team areas.
Right. I'm curious, you'd mentioned about, different things coming across your desk. Is the primary issues you're addressing, are they protests in around fighting, UB, all that kind of, is that what you're primarily dealing with? Is that the main concerns that are coming your way?
So during the season, there are a number of types of communications that I get. Protest, obviously, that's a function of the job. So anytime there is a protest, it starts with me. I get a lot of questions about rule interpretation. Sometimes before the fact, rather than waiting till something happens and then complaining. For example, I had a couple of coaches ask me about substitution rules regarding goalkeepers, and hey, if I wanted to play a goalkeeper in the field, can I move them around? How does this work? That kind of thing. So sometimes people have proactive changes. There's a lot of communication about uniforms. So teams sometimes get things from manufacturers in a way that they're not quite meeting NCAA specifications. Sometimes they ask for a waiver until they can get that fixed. Sometimes they ask on the front end, hey, this is what we're looking to do for our new set of uniforms. Is this compliant with NCAA rules? And I'm always happy to give them an opinion and save us some trouble down the road.
Sure.
There are a number of times where people have hey, this happened in the game. What do you think about this? And some of that goes last year to Ryan Sigich. This year it would go to John Collins. Some of that goes to me. It's just, people kind of, I'm a sounding board. This happened. What do you think?
Right.
Even though I don't really have any ability to change anything.
Sure. Interesting. Well, very good. So points of emphasis, some changes to video, offside stuff. Anything else we should look forward to this season?
I am just thrilled by the fact that we have had an entire discussion about college soccer and no one has once mentioned referee uniforms.
Mostly because I'm sick of hearing it myself in my own area. So, yeah, I guess that is a change that we are looking towards, isn't it?
Yeah, my understanding is that we have 3 manufacturers currently that are making the uniform. I've heard that officials have been receiving the uniforms. They've been able to place orders. We have a 4th manufacturer that wants to get involved as well, and we're working with them to make sure that the colors match the other 3 manufacturers. So I think we're in pretty good shape with that. I think it's going to be a good thing going forward. I understand we had a lot of anxiety and drama getting there, but I think it is going to give us a standard look for the college game, and I think that is a good thing.
Good. Yeah, I would agree. Especially only having 3 versus all sorts of things along the color spectrum. So
yeah, and that's one thing that we had said to officials. We had a lot of questions about, well, how is this going to work? And this is a big expense, and I just bought X number of new uniforms of a different style. And we're certainly sensitive to that. It's one of the reasons why the NCAA decided we're just going with black socks. We're not going to have, officials having to buy multiple colored socks. And, nothing against our manufacturers of uniforms, but sometimes they have a vested interest in introducing new colors because it becomes a way to expand their sales. Right. Well, the NCAA Soccer Rules Committee is the one who controls the design. So they're not receiving anything financially from this. They have no interest in adding to the number of colors and styles that are out there. Right. So what we're able to promise officials is this is the uniform and it's not going to change on a semi-annual basis.
Right. Which is good news. It's just very good news for folks that end up, especially in recent years where it's felt like there's been a lot of adjustments. Depends on the organizations you work for and things like that can add additional expenses in uniforms. So very good. Well, anything else, Rich, that we need to know about? Anything that's burning that you need to tell us about?
No, I think just everybody be on the lookout. We'll have the test should be available through RQ. We're looking for August 1st as our kickoff date for that. The preseason memo will be out probably a week following that. And then we really get into it. And, I would personally encourage officials to sign up with RefQuest. Not only do you get your postseason eligibility, but you get a background check taken care of. You get insurance coverage as well. So I know more and more conferences are requiring their officials to do that. That's going to be our preferred platform for submitting all the educational content and getting that out there to college officials. So that's the place to go. I would encourage people to go there.
Very good. But you heard it here first. Awesome. Rich, thank you so much for your time. Always good to chat with you.
Gordie, always a pleasure. Enjoyed it.
Well, Zach, you know, as they say, all good things must come to an end.
Fat lady son.
That's right. Yes, somewhere out there. But this wonderful good thing that is Season 2, Episode 4 must come to an end. Thank you for being here.
Appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Great to see you again as always, and your insights about us signing are always good to hear. Keep being professional out there, folks. Take care of your business. As always, or as not as always, as of this episode, please send us your suggestions for the Nerd Out segment.
Yeah.
So we're excited to do that. We'll do as many segments as we have items to nerd out about, okay? Which
There's a lot.
that could be 2 or 3 seasons
Yes.
ahead. You know, who knows? But we want to hear from you. That will be your entry into the drawing. We'll draw a name out of the hat or mug or whatever. Probably just be out of a spreadsheet. But anyway, we will draw someone and be in contact with you if you win that drawing item. But we want to hear from you as to what items you think we should nerd out about on the Check Complete podcast. Big shout out to Rich Grady, NCAA rules editor, amongst other things that he's involved in life. Very well-versed man. We appreciate his time and efforts to kind of get us in the right headspace and prepare us for the upcoming college soccer season. Like I said earlier, reach out to us if you have things, obviously about the Nerd Out items, but just any suggestions about the podcast you'd like to hear or for us to talk about. info@checkcompletepodcast.com is our email address. You can also reach out to us on Instagram and Twitter at @check_complete. Slide into the DMs. Send us a personalized message on Facebook, Check Complete Podcast. Make sure you like and subscribe on YouTube or follow us, subscribe, whatever it is that you do on your preferred podcast account, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, I don't know, whatever else is out there that we're doing this on. Make sure you follow us and subscribe. We'd love to hear from you, any suggestions that you have to make this a better resource for the referee community. All right, well, we're off. This has been Season 2, Episode 4. Zach, good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you.
Enjoy your life out there, people. Enjoy your life out there, people. I don't know what that was.
No, that's good. I like it.
Enjoy your life.
Enjoy your life.
Enjoy your life. That's all right.
Enjoy your life. Fuck off.
Things.
Enjoy your life while I enjoy
Happy
this
whistling.
donut.
Well, I dig into this Bavarian cream.